So this is the Making of Dragon Age the Veilguard cover story feature for Game Informer. I've read little bits and pieces of the interviews that have been pulled out from this, and we've covered them in some other places here on YouTube as part of my Dragon Age the Veilguard coverage leading up to the game, because I am going to be playing the absolute snot out of this game. But this is the full cover story that they did. I've not actually watched this yet, so I figured this would be a great one to do live. It is about 30 minutes long, and because I will be pausing it and etc. to talk about things here and there, I don't know how long this will end up being, but I would anticipate about 45 minutes. So I would say, just if you're watching this either now during the live stream or you're going to be watching this after the fact, after I pull it out and cut it into its own thing, expect somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes in length. I can't promise that I'll be short and sweet. I love Dragon Age as a series. You can't take the sky from me. I refuse to bend to the will of people who claim that the Veilguard is going to be a horrible game or that it's woke or anything like that. Those people don't actually play video games. They just like to make rage bait videos. I'm here to play games, have fun. I love all the companies that make games, but Bioware has made some really good games over the years. I love the Mass Effect series. I love the Dragon Age series. I cannot wait to play Dragon Age the Veilguard. We're going to be doing a completionist run here on my channel. Pretty sure I'm going to do an Archer the first time through, and then we'll do an Evoker the next time through. But I may end up changing my mind and do those in reverse order. But let's take a look at the Making of Dragon Age the Veilguard cover story
I
feature.
remember when Dragon Age Origins came out, playing that game, day one purchase. I love RPGs, and I'd never played anything like it. To be honest, it kind of blew my mind. It really felt like a step forward for the genre, and I fell in love with the characters. I fell in
Morgan. I fell in love with the characters too. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Dragon Age Origins, I remember it wasn't my first game of that genre. Dragon Age Origins was the best game I had played since Baldur's Gate 2. It took that distinction. Like, it was as good as Baldur's Gate 2 was, and I played this game nonstop for like 6 months because it came out at a time when there still wasn't a ton of competition, a lot of online games or anything like that, and just absolutely loved this game. The fact that Claudia Black voiced one of my favorite characters, who I romanced absolutely my first time through the game. Yes, Dragon Age
love with the
Origins.
presentation, had all the strategy I was looking for. I was in awe of that game. And to
It's
sit
a
here
great game.
now, working on the next edition of Dragon Age, it's a dream come true.
I owe my career to Dragon Age. I've grown as a person and grown as a game developer with it, and just I'm so excited to finally be able to talk about Veilguard especially.
This is really the best Dragon Age game that I've ever played.
It looks
I
amazing.
carry some bias because I'm coming into it partially from the outside, but yeah, this is the best one. This is the one where we get back
I like
to
Bark.
our roots of character-driven storytelling, have really fun combat, and aren't making compromises.
Every game.
The
has
combat
heart
looks
and
great
soul
to me.
that goes into it. But this is something different. This is something more.
I know a lot of people who are stuck in the Dragon Age Origins mentality are like, I'm not going to play it because the combat, it looks like God of War. I say, no, it looks like Mass Effect, which is another game that this company made that you claim to also love. So just, Dragon Age has never been a CRPG game. Dragon Age has evolved every single game in the franchise. It has always been something different. And I'm happy to see them embracing like that Mass Effect sort of feel for this game, where you've got sort of your action-based combat mixed with your ability-based stuff, and then your companions. I love everything I've seen from the combat previews so far. I can't wait to play an Archer build. And Nair, I'm absolutely romancing Nair my first time through. She is hot as hell. Ice Mage. Look at that dragon. Yeah, baby!
I'm John Epler. I am the creative director for Dragon Age the Veilguard. Been at Bioware for coming up on 17 years this year. I pull together the story, the vision, the kind of creative intent of not just the game, but how it relates to Dragon Age as a whole, the storytelling we're doing, and all that sort of thing.
My name's Corinne Bush. I'm the game director on Dragon Age the Veilguard. I joined BioWare just shortly after Anthem had launched.
I loved Anthem.
And
I don't care.
the opportunity
Say what you want. I
came
thought it was a
along
great
to join
game.
my dream franchise, Dragon Age?
I'm Mark Dara. I am the former executive producer for the Dragon
Mark!
Age franchise. I was executive producer on Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age Inquisition.
One of the things we wanted to make sure with Veilguard is that it's respectful and
I'm glad they got
referential
him
to
back to
previous
do this
games
interview,
without feeling
even
like
though
you
he's not
needed to have
actively
played
involved
Inquisition
anymore with
or
the franchise.
DA2 or DAO to understand what's going on. So while there are references, there are moments that we have callbacks, it really is its own story, its own continuation with a different cast with different characters. Historically, Dragon Age has always had a different cast per game.
Yep.
So that gives us a lot of freedom in terms of what we want to lean on in the past and what we want to really bring in that's new and forward facing.
I'm
The
happy.
thing
Bring
that
us a new
happened in
trilogy. Like,
2023 that I love
it's all
is
good.
that it blew the doors open in terms of what a storytelling RPG could be, where you had Baldur's Gate 3 and you had Zelda and you had all of these games, Starfield, come out in the same year and say, this is a storytelling RPG. They're very different from each other. You can like some of these, you can like all of these, but the genre can be bigger. We're learning on each other, we're building foundations that we can build upon. So I think there are going to be a lot of people who picked up their first RPG last year that are going to be looking to pick up something new and could really find something to love in Dragon Age.
I
Veilguard.
don't disagree. That's why I keep telling people, don't listen to the naysayers. Dragon Age Veilguard's going to be a blast. Varric and Solus, baby.
Let's buy him some time.
Now, I want to be clear, I adore Solus. I'm a Solo Valen player, but this is not a game about Solus. So, in all things we do, trying to capture that authentic experience, we felt the title really needed to change.
Dreadwolf suggests a title focused on a specific individual, whereas Veilguard, much like Inquisition, focuses more on the team, focuses more on the group, focuses more on the party than it does on one specific person.
The absolute beating heart of this game are these authentic, diverse companions. And when we took a step back, as we always do, we always check our decisions and make sure that they still represent the game we're trying to build. It just felt like we needed a title that represented what this game was truly about.
I think it was absolutely the right choice. Names can take on a momentum. Arguably, this game has kind of, in a way, been called Dreadwolf since its earlier days.
Oh,
And
yeah,
as the
it's
game
like
evolved, as the game figured out exactly
the
what it
rumor
was,
name at the very
it's
beginning.
very mature to step back and say, we called it something, does it really still reflect what the game
Oh,
is?
Bianca.
And I think
No,
the fact that
Bianca,
the team is
no.
willing to take that step is amazing, and I think this is absolutely the right decision.
Is Solus summoning demons on purpose? My guess is the veil is weakening, and they're slipping through the cracks.
Oh, that's such a cool scene.
And when the veil
Demons
comes
running
down
everywhere.
completely, then the whole
Shakalaka.
world is going to look a lot like this.
Run away.
One of the principles we took to when we were building the story of the Veilguard early on was we wanted the beginning of the game to feel like the final chapter of an earlier story. You know, at the end of Trespasser, Solus said he was going to end the world, tear down the Veil, and so you start the Veilguard having chased Solus to the city of Minrathous in the Tevinter Empire, there to stop his ritual, there to take him down, and so you're working with Varric, you're working with other characters, Scout Harding, Nev, who is the detective.
Nev, who is the hot detective I'm going to be romancing. Also, I love the fact that they called out Trespasser. I've never played the Trespasser DLC. I'm currently sort of weaving in a Dragon Age Inquisition playthrough into everything else I do. I've been doing a little bit of offline play, occasionally some online play, because I really do want to get to the Trespasser and play through it before I play this game, even though this is a standalone game. Like he says, there is a tie-in to the Trespasser DLC and the character of Solus, who you meet in Inquisition, and what he goes through and what leads to the events that are happening at the beginning of this game. So even though it's not a direct sequel, it is a, like they said, they have ties back to the other storylines. So for those of you who are interested, I don't play that game a lot on the channel, but I will occasionally, once every week or so, once every couple of weeks. We were doing it once a week, twice a week, and then I got busy with No Man's Sky, so it'll we might see it make a return at some point. But I am doing a Dragon Age Inquisition playthrough on the Xbox, so stay tuned for that because I want to know more about the Trespasser DLC.
You're there to find this character, so you're chasing him. You're trying to stop this ritual that he's already said multiple times that he's going to perform before he performs it, because if he does, the veil get torn down, Fade and the world of the Waking will merge, and demons will pour out, pretty much meaning the end of life as we know it.
You know, the thing that is so amazing about Veilguard is this is the game where we finally said out loud that Bioware's greatest strength is telling stories through characters. If you go all the way back to Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, these are games that are telling stories through characters, but there wasn't an intentionality behind that. And in this game, we're finally putting that intentionality first and foremost, putting the characters first, building the game around those character moments, around those characters, which is really the best way that Bioware knows how to tell stories.
The most
It's
interesting
always worked
villains
for
to
me. I
myself,
love their
and honestly,
characters.
to most people, are not
Mass
just
Effect
straight
or
up,
Dragon
I just
Age.
want to end the world. To them, they are the heroes of the story, and Solus is no exception. Solus always feels that he is a tragic hero, but a hero nonetheless. So he's coming into this believing firmly that what you stopped him from doing was the right thing, that you made a mistake, but because now he's trapped, now he can't, reach out and actively affect, he needs to work with you. And that allows us to provide a lot of nuance to the relationship, because Solus sees a lot of himself in you, especially the parts of himself that he maybe doesn't like to face. So there is kind of that interesting push and pull between the two characters, Solus and the main protagonist, Rook. And you can define what that relationship means. You can continue to be suspicious and hostile towards him, or you can start to see him and find that common ground, find that connection between the two of you, and really develop a different relationship over the course of the story.
This is a good direction to take the Solus story. It allows us to hopefully give a good conclusion to all of the varied attitudes towards Solus that are going to be coming into this game. People who love Solus, people who agree with Solus, people who hate Solus, people who want to kick Solus off a building. I think that we give you the opportunity to bring that to a close, but then tell a greater story about the Veilguard and about the world as a whole.
Having worked on Inquisition, having worked on Veilguard, one of the things that we really wanted to lean into early on was Dragon Age has always been about characters, but to some degree it's almost felt like we've lucked into that. Inquisition is a story that ultimately you and the main characters you recruit at the beginning are the ones who have the biggest part to play. We wanted to tell a story this time where you literally cannot save the world without these characters. Beyond that, though, we also wanted to give them their own arcs that run parallel to the main
Veil
story,
Jumper,
and really give them that kind of deep storytelling that our fans really enjoy and really thrive. So these followers or these companions don't just exist by themselves. They have relationships with each other as well. They have friendships, they have rivalries, and lean into that concept. You're not just pulling together a bunch of people who will do whatever you say. You're assembling a family, and that becomes the core of what the Veilguard is all about. It's about taking this group, this family, and saving the world side by side with them.
This is a story told through characters, but it is a story.
This was the character reveal trailer I think they did a couple months back, if I'm not mistaken.
Done just to do them. In Veilguard, things are done towards a goal, towards a storytelling goal, towards the future. So this is a game which takes the ball that Inquisition had, puts its own spin on it, has its own characters, takes its own direction, but continues that path forward into the future.
One of the principles we wanted to get into with Dragon Age, the Veilguard, is the world exists even when you're not around. There are things, there are ancient conflicts, there are grudges, things that happen even when Rook, the protagonist, isn't participating in them, and you kind of come in media res in some of these. So the message of the Veilguard is you're not saving the world on your own. You need your companions, but you also need these factions, these other groups in the world. You help them, they help you. Now, something we wanted to avoid, because there's always the trope of, oh yeah, I would help you save the world, but I need you to go gather 200, wood. 200 wood, exactly.
Fetch quests.
It's kind of a silly concept. So what we wanted to build is these factions that do want to help you, but have realistic challenges, problems in front of them. So narratively, you help them with their problems. They will help you with yours when the time comes. But beyond that, each faction has a follower as well as ancillary character we're calling agents, who exist as these face of the faction. We're not going to get too deep into those right now, but we didn't want to just say, here's the warden, go deal with the war. We wanted to have characters within that faction who are sympathetic, who you can see and who become the face of that faction. So even if there's moments where the faction as a whole may be on the outs with you.
I don't think it's not necessarily new, Grade 8.
It's a core of
I think
what we've
Game
done with the
Informer
storytelling.
published
We
this
wanted to
a
make
couple
sure
weeks
all
back,
the
I
content
think.
you did felt relevant.
I just haven't
Everything
watched
we
the
do
actual full video
has a
yet, which is what we're
purpose
doing
and
today.
has a tie back into the critical path. Sometimes it's more explicit than others, but
It's
there
new
is
for
always
me.
a sense that you're moving towards the goal of stopping the elven gods, stopping the end of the world. And it's not just, and I love Dragon Age Inquisition, but the side content, it's not just finding the ring, someone's ring and returning to them. It's helping these people, helping these groups so they can help you when the time comes.
So when it comes to identity and iteration on the franchise,
God, that
we've
looks
really
beautiful.
moved it into a place where you have the highest of highs. It can be colorful, it can be optimistic, but also you can have the lowest
God,
of
those
lows
views are
where it gets gritty,
breathtaking.
it gets painful, it gets quite dark. But throughout it all, there's a sense of optimism, and it creates this delightful through line through the game, this identity that
There's
I
a
really think is
dragon!
something special for the franchise now and going forward.
Should we be in more of a hurry to get out of here? We don't want to look conspicuous. Just get out of here nice and casual. Find Nev Gallus and stop Solus.
The interesting thing about Dragon Age the Veilguard is it takes part in a world of Thetis that we've only hinted at. We've never been there before.
Well, that's
the Grey Warden
the
Fortress of
games have
Weishaupt,
traditionally always
the
taken place in
depths of
different
Arlathan
locations, which is
Forest,
great. That's
the
one of the things I
Ravine
love about the
Coast,
franchise,
or
is
even
that
the,
each
the
game we
Grand
get to see
Necropolis
someplace
in
new.
Navarra.
It's the
These
same
are
thing with
storied locations. Let's not forget about
Obsidian's
Minrathous
Pillars of Eternity
itself.
games.
The great thing about
Every
setting
game
the
is set in a
game
different
these
location.
storied locations is no one
world
has
building.
ever seen them before.
It's extremely exciting. It's honestly, when we started building out these spaces, it's just the possibilities were endless. There's a very famous line by Dorian talking about Minrathous in particular. You go to Thom Sherrall Inquisition, and it's this big, gilded, impressive palace. The only place you've been up to this point is either Kirkwall or Ferelden, both, a little bit less impressive. And Dorian looks at this massive structure, this just absolutely enchanting castle, and says, yeah, that's cute. So finding those moments where we've referenced things and thinking to ourselves, what is the best version of this that we can present? And in the case of Minrathous, what's more spectacular than this massive gilded palace? In the case of Arlathan, what does it look like when you go to the place where the elves had their ancient empire that was run on and fueled by magic? What does the aftermath of that look like, especially when the gods are out in the world and raw magic is seeping back out from the Fade? So one of the things we wanted to get to with the team is really lean on them for their ideas. Like, what excites you about this space? What brings you, a joy and just a thrill to put into the game? And making sure that it fits with the lore. But the great thing about Dragon Age is it's always historically been a series where truth has multiple perspectives. So it just allowed us to build this cohesive space, but also this incredibly colorful, detailed version of each of these spaces we've never been to.
It really is a hub and spoke based design. Your base of operations is the lighthouse. You're going to journey out
So it's like
from
your
the
camp.
lighthouse into
Okay.
an area of the Fade known as the Crossroads, which is full of mysteries, exploration,
But also portals, I'm
branching
assuming, lets you go
paths,
different
and
places.
you take Alluvians to the far corners of northern
Yep.
Thetis. As far as the environments themselves, some of them are more heavily mission focused, which means they're full of narrative beat after narrative beat. And this is one of the constants of our design philosophy is a curated, handcrafted experience. And by creating that sense of handcrafted, narrative-based experience, we really strongly feel it allows us to tell the best stories possible. We know what's going to happen, we know when it's going to happen, but of course it's influenced by all the decisions that you, the player, have made along the way. However, the game does really open up into some of our larger exploration areas. Now, it's not open world, but these are non-linear areas where you can open up new sections of the map, find new pathways, really leaning into solving mysteries, finding ancient treasures,
Puzzles, baby.
and some of our apex
I
battles.
can dig it.
There's some truly terrifying enemies you're going to encounter when you're left to your own means to kind of explore these larger areas.
We've been in the south of Thetis, and South Thetis is Ferelden, Orlais. Both are still fairly oppressive. They still have circles. Mages are viewed with suspicion. But Tevinter has always been this land where mages rule. Mages are in charge. Mages make the rules, mages run the show. So what does that look like? And as we've gone through, DAO, DA2, Inquisition, magic has become more and more present. And part of that is because Solus has been slowly preparing this ritual for longer than anyone in the Dragon Age universe is really aware of, but also just going into these spaces where magic is by definition and by the lore much, much more present. It's been fun because, again, We do have rules. We want to make sure we're not violating the lore, violating things we've said before. But it's also, again, that permissiveness of, okay, what is the most interesting way to do this? What's the most interesting way to tell this story?
So
It's also,
hot!
honestly, as technology has gotten better, we've been able to show Origins DA2 on the Eclipse engine.
Oh,
We
look
could
at
talk
that.
about this fantastical magic, but the engine didn't really
They're,
allow us
they're
to
trying
show
to make
it.
me
For
want to
the
play a
first time, we're
dual-wielding
really
rogue
able
is what
to
they're
let
trying
the
to do.
visuals speak for themselves and not have
But
to
he's
tell
using
the
a bow
player, "Trust
sometimes
us."
too.
It's
I don't
spectacular.
know.
This magic is really cool. We can actually show you and let you drink it in because it is, again, it's a
Oh, that was a
fantastical
reflection,
setting.
Perry.
We have a rich history of lore, of world building within the IP. So existing players will be familiar with these places and very excited to go to them and explore their mysteries. But for our new players, we're not assuming that you know anything about these locations. And I would say that also extends to the characters. We've taken great care in how we introduce each and every single companion, major story figure within the game as they're introduced.
This crew needs a leader. Someone we can count on. Someone that the world can count on.
Mwah.
But where are we gonna find her?
So, for me personally, and I know for the team, it was important that you could see yourself in the game, and that always begins with the character creator. Who you want to be, who you are, or maybe just a completely different character. And that
It's a
meant
good-looking
supporting
sword, man.
all the options, various lineages throughout the history of Dragon Age, and also the various types of identities and people that exist out in the world. I'm really proud of what we've built there.
I love
because
Varric's look in this game. Long
is a game where
haired,
it
scraggly,
really
a little bit
belongs.
older, a little
Dragon
bit
Age
wiser.
Origins and Dragon Age 2 were doing what they could with the technology that
Dragon
they had.
Age
Dragon Age
Origins.
Inquisition did a good job of using Frostbite, respected the engine, but this game has been able to execute visually to a degree that just wasn't possible in the past. Everyone moved in exactly the same way.
You can always
As
say
you
that
put on
about
a suit
any
of
engine,
armor,
though.
And you put it on Alistair, you looked exactly the same, standing right beside each other. Now we're able to keep the character coming through in the visuals and the motion, even as you're customizing them, which just wasn't possible in the past.
It's really tough, I must say, in an RPG where you're equipping different types of armor, where you've got different lineages to create that robust experience. But it's something we absolutely wanted to support. And that comes along with a couple of new to Dragon Age features that really push the limits of what
I still
we've
can't believe
seen in RPG
they destroyed
character
Bianca
creation
because
before. So
we've
first
seen
of
it
all,
get
full
destroyed
body
in
customization
the videos,
with
and I don't know if we're
pretty
going to be able to repair it or not, because that's
diversity in
it's an
terms
integral part
body
of
shape,
Varric's
body
identity.
size, proportions, things of that nature. So that was a pretty big evolution for us. We've also invested tremendous effort in our strand hair technology, numerous hairstyles, because we know how much our fans care about that.
Yes,
I'm one of
but-
them as well. The
But
first thing
I gotta
always
pause the
look
video to
for
talk about
is,
this.
"Show me the
Every
hairstyle."
company for like the last decade has always bragged about. Even Larian Studios did this with their hair. They did multiple early access videos on the hair technology and the hair colors, and it's impressive. It's always impressive, but it's never as good as reality. And I don't think we're ever going to get there. But I do find it amusing that every company in like the history of RPGs always tries to talk about the hair tech and be like, we've got impressive new hair technology, and it's always it looks good, but it's never like okay.
Styles. But the range of hairstyles really matters too. It's not
It's
just about
interesting.
quantity. It's making sure that we have diverse representation for all types of players.
Because they're definitely
This
dealing
is
with like an
defining
art
how
style,
you want to enter the world,
not realism.
So we
So
took a step back and said,
I love
how
the
are
way
we gonna
Varric's hair
incorporate
looks.
things like your background in a meaningful way? How are we going to incorporate things like how you want to experience the gameplay of the game? And all of those are very important factors. I'm particularly proud of integrating
Right,
we call it
PS5,
playstyle. It is
exactly, Alloy's
effectively
here.
difficulty into the character creation
Horizon-
process. So
her
you
hair
can
has
select
always
a
been
number
great.
of preset experiences that your character will adopt and step
I would
into the
argue
game
some of the
with, but you
best,
can
probably.
also customize that play style. So if you're like me and you're terrible at parrying, you can use that up a little bit. Some of the locations
I am
that
terrible
we'll
at
be
parrying. I don't have
visiting
the
are
reflexes,
bustling
so.
cityscapes. We're going to go right to the heart of the Tevinter Empire. We're also going to go to a city in Antiva called Treviso. These have a dense populace, and we knew we needed to have the tools to support a wide range of NPCs. You're not going to find NPCs that look alike in this game. Every NPC is crafted using the same tools that we're giving to our players, with the exception of some of our custom sculpted characters like the companions. So when you walk up to that market vendor in Minrathous, you can make that character. When you see the guards patrolling the street, you can make that character too. I think it's so interesting, not only as a developer to be able to use player-facing tools and technology, but then as a player to be inspired by the population around you and be able to go replicate that inside of the character creator.
I think more people will be interested in making
Wasn't she at the meeting point?
faces of
Venatori got
famous
to her
characters
first.
from
We
reality,
grabbed her before we arrived
remaking
and
other
paid off
Dragon
the
Age
borrower to keep
characters.
it quiet. I'm not surprised our detective did something to piss off a cult of murderous blood mages, but their timing stinks.
These are the most fully realized, complex companions we've ever crafted, and I do believe they are our best. They're complicated, they have complicated problems, and what's interesting, as much as I adore the companions and the journeys I've been on with them in past Dragon Age titles, previously it feels like the companions are going on an adventure with me, the main character, whether it's the hero Ferelden or Hawk, you name it. But in Dragon Age the Veilguard, in many ways, the companions are so fleshed out that it feels as though I'm going on a journey with them. I'm exploring how they think and feel. I'm helping them through their problems. We're working through their unique character arcs. They feel like my dear friends, and I absolutely adore them. So outside of combat, what that means is they're going to have their own concerns, fears, distractions, and indeed, even their own sanctuaries, their own personal spaces. In our, I guess you could call it our base of operations this time, our player hub, the lighthouse, each of the companions has their own room. And what I love about it is it becomes a reflection of who they are. The more time you spend with them, as the game develops, as you work through their arc, their room and their personalities will evolve and flourish and become
Hopefully we'll see like their
more
different
complete
decorations show
as
up in
they
other
trust
things.
you more and you understand them better.
Yeah,
What's
the lighting does
interesting,
look good. I think the whole game
companions
looks good
also
so
develop
far.
romantically. I'm not just talking about with the character, the main character Rook. I'm talking about with each other. There are moments in the game where two of our companions fell in love with each other, and I had to make some pretty challenging choices.
Now, I have lots of questions about this because they've talked about, characters will fall in love with each other if you're not actively pursuing a romantic relationship with one or the other. And it made sense in previous games because you had a total of 4 people in your party. Well, in the first game you had 6, and then they went to, the 4 or whatever. In this game, you're only going to have 3 total, yourself and 2 others. So I'm curious what they mean when they say characters will pursue relationships outside of you, because if I have my romantic interest in the party, that only leaves room for 1/3 wheel. So does this mean only the characters back at camp are going to be, I guess, at the camp doing camp hanky panky? I don't know. But how are we going to hear that take place? Where's that going to take place? What's the narrative going to look like? Because it's not going to be happening in the party. At least not for me, because I'm going to have my romanceable character in the party, and that 3rd wheel is not going to be pursuing them romantically. So I'm genuinely curious how this is going to be playing out. I'm assuming it's only going to be in the lighthouse / camp area.
To the quest we were on, and it broke my heart. It absolutely did. So I would say, as you're adventuring with them, and you're returning to the lighthouse and getting to know them, all of these decisions and conversations and things you learn about them, it endears them to you in a way that I honestly haven't experienced before. And sometimes that fills me with joy, and sometimes it breaks my heart.
You need to play more RPGs, because I promise you, lots of games have great romance and reputation systems.
Are you sure? Positive. You 3 just keep the demons off me while I talk to him.
Varric, Solus isn't gonna stop just because an old friend asks nicely.
Solus needs someone to sell him another option, to help him justify changing his mind.
You can do it.
Come on, Varric. We didn't come all this way just to talk to him.
He was my friend, Rook.
I think this is a game that tries to give the player as much agency as we can, and then reflecting it back on you. Choice and consequence can be really hard to show, but this is a game about agency, about giving you options, and whether that be in how you play
Choose
or approach
wisely.
combat, whether that be in how you make your character, whether that be in how you decide who you're going to romance.
So the challenge that's always before us is how do we appeal to each of those sensibilities? The person that's there for the story, the person that is there to min-max their character and do the most damage, the person who really wants to lean into tactical versus the player who really wants to lean into action and fluidity. There are a couple of different axes to our progression systems and how your character will develop over time. There is the gear that you'll find along the way, the things you'll equip. There are the progression systems there within where you're upgrading the gear, you're enchanting it. That extends
All
your
the things we've
companions,
seen in
by the
other
way.
RPGs.
There's
It's
also
a RPG
the robust
staple.
skill tree system that we have.
Skill
This
trees
allows
are
you to
normal?
take any of our 3 classes, the warrior, the rogue, or the mage, specialize them. Each class has 3 different highly distinct specializations, but a skill tree that connects them all together that is easy to use, but also pretty boundless in terms of the gameplay options and
Well, that's good to know
styles
that
of
we can
character
customize to
building
that
can create.
degree. Everybody will be able to have their own sort of version of the archetypes.
We have to stop this demon quickly.
The gameplay in the franchise has been an evolution.
Ooh, that
Every
was a cool
single
pull
entry
move.
reimagines what combat is like.
But it does keep that thread that's always been there. When you go from Dragon Age Origins with very tactical combat to Dragon Age 2, which still had pause and play, to Dragon Age Inquisition, again with some tactics, pause and play, but moving towards more action-oriented aspects. In this game, you have focus on Rook, on your character, but still having that control coming into your combat experience from the other people in your party.
Our goal was to make sure we had a system that allowed players to feel like they actually were able to step into the world of Thedas. They're not a player observing from afar. They are inside of this world. The combat system needs to support that. So that starts
There's a
with
lot
that
of-
foundation.
It's
which
very
is a
interesting listening to
real-time
her talk, 'cause she's
combat
doing a lot
system.
of
But what I will say
what I would
is that
call publicity
while it
talk.
provides a level of accessibility,
She's
and
selling
connection,
us.
and
She's
indeed
trying to sell us in the
weight,
game. Now,
you know,
I'm
one
already
of my
sold in the
favorite
game. I just want more
things is that
details about
every attack,
systems.
every swing of the sword, when you
I don't
connect
need to
to
hear
it,
the sales
that's
pitch.
feel it. But that is just
I'm
the
good to go.
baseline. That allows us to get that level of immersion.
Take my
that
money.
I'm actually in this world. I'm a part of it. But again,
Of course I'm
the
a part of it.
abilities,
I've been a
the
part of Thedas for
strategy,
20 years since I
linking
started
my
playing the first game.
companions' abilities together to perform devastating combos, that is really where the depth and the complexity comes into play. Companions as realized characters. We have to take that premise when we talk about how they show up in combat. These are their own people. They have their own behaviors, they have their own autonomy on the battlefield. They'll pick their own targets. As the plots progress, they'll learn how to use their abilities more competently, and it really feels like you're fighting alongside these realized characters in battle. So I love that. I love the believability of it.
The two-handed-
it feels like we're all in it
the dual
together.
wielding
But
looks really
then
good
when
in this
it
game.
comes time for the strategy and the progression, I
Frodo,
might
are you
add,
coming over here
that's
to say
where
hi?
really a sense of teamwork comes into play. As the leader of this party is
Sure.
Rook. When I open the ability wheel, I almost feel like we're huddling up, coming up with a game plan together. I see all the abilities that Harding has, and I see everything that Balara is capable of. And
wanna go out?
sometimes I'm using their abilities synergistically. Maybe
Keep
I'm
being a Frodo,
slowing
Chris.
time with Balara so that I can unleash devastating attacks with Harding, knocking down the enemy, and then me as Rook, I'm rushing in and capitalizing on this setup they've created for me. It is a game about creating this organic sense of teamwork. Now, there are more explicit synergies as well. We very much have intentional combos where your companions can play off of each other. You can queue up abilities between them, and each of those abilities will go off and have their effect, but it results in this massive detonation where you get enhanced effects, debuff the entire battlefield, all because of planning and teamwork.
Combos
What
for
makes
the
it
win,
really
baby.
cool is you can introduce Rook into that equation as well. One of my favorite things to do is upgrade some of Harding's abilities, so she will autonomously use some of these abilities that normally I'd have to instruct her to do, and she'll actually set my character up to execute a combo that again has that detonation effect.
Well, it's cool that they're
And
going to
what's
have that
been
element of tactics in there,
surprising, I
because
think,
that's always
for
been a
me,
trademark of the Dragon
is
Age
that
franchise.
It's really changed the way I approach the game. I'm very much the pause and play tactical, strategic RPG player. But what I found is that I entered into kind of a hybrid play style the more familiar I got with this game that we've created, where I'm leaning into the fluid, responsive gameplay. I'm using my abilities
Oh,
of
that
the
was
main character in
wicked.
real time. But then I
That
am
combo
pausing
was
the
really well
action
done.
when
Hang
I
on,
want
I
to
gotta
leverage
back
my
that up.
main character in real
Look at this combo.
gameplay. I'm
Boom,
using my
boom,
abilities
boom,
of a
boom,
rook
and
or
then
main
wha-bam!
character in real
Like,
time.
that's a
But
good
then I
combo
am
right
pausing
there.
the action when I want to leverage my companions and string together complex combos or synergies that I've identified on my own. It gives you that moment to think and respond in a way that is truly delightful. I came up through most of my career as a systems designer, working in progression systems and economy and how these little virtual characters behave. But I think the thing that surprised me the most has to be just the passion and the culture that the studio has for telling stories for these characters that we've all created together.
I mean, honestly, I just want to say I am incredibly proud of this project. I'm incredibly proud of this team, and I think the
Yeah,
thing
we're at
I'm
the
most
end. I was
excited
gonna say they're
about
starting to
when
talk like we're
people
wrapping
start
up,
playing
and
this game,
it's
people
definitely
start seeing
wrapping
more
up.
about this game is every little piece, every little thing in this game is because somebody cared. Somebody cared enough to put it in, and you can see that there's a saying that the game reflects the team. I think this one reflects the team that made it in the best possible way.
I'm really excited about this game. It's really been really gratifying to come back onto the team and see everything that they've accomplished in the last couple of years. The game's coming together great. It's really fun, and I'm really looking forward to people getting their hands on it in a little while.
I am also extremely excited to get my hands on Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and I will
Sure
be
that we can build it.
streaming the absolute shit out of this game when it comes live. We still don't have a launch date, but I do know yesterday they made an announcement that it is coming to the Steam Deck, and it will not require the EA app, to play it on the Steam Deck. So that's an added bonus for people. I don't know yet if it's going to require the EA app or an EA account for like the Xbox version or or the other versions, but the Steam Deck version, excuse me, is not going to require an individual account with the EA app system. So we'll see how that all works, because I think there's stuff tied to the castle as well for cloud saves that require you to have an EA account. So I don't know how all that's going to work, but um, we're still being told a fall release for this. So sometime, well, not fall, but 2024. So it could be fall, it could be winter, but sometime in 2024, I will be playing this game alongside Indiana Jones, The Great Circle, Avowed, Star Wars Outlaws, Space Marine 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Stalker 2. All these are games that I'm going to be playing. So if you want to see me play those games and you want to hear more about them, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you're watching here on YouTube. If you're over on Twitch, as we multi-stream every single day, don't forget to follow there as well. But also, don't forget, if you are on Twitch right now, the day-to-day stuff happens on YouTube. So all of my game guides, reviews, reaction videos, and everything else typically get released there. And of course, all the Let's Play episodes from our streams. So thanks, everybody. I'm out. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time with some more No Man's Sky as I continue my adventures as a new player there. And I may be back tonight with the Red Dead Redemption 2 stream. I'm not sure yet. Normally I would play World of Warcraft on Saturday nights, but we're waiting for Blizzard to patch some Warband stuff before we can get back into the adventure for the War Within pre-patch. But then we have the event kicking off next week, so we'll be playing the event on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. But more Dragon Age news as it comes out, and I cover lots of other games, so don't forget to check out all the places, all the socials, Discord, Patreon, and beyond. Thanks for hanging out this morning, everybody. I'll catch you tomorrow or tonight, whenever I'm live next time. See you then.